3 seconds doesn't sound like much time. You can't even tie a shoelace in 3 seconds. You can't light a cigarette. But in November of 1944, 3 seconds was enough time to lose your soul. It was enough time to decide if I was a soldier who followed orders or a human being who would have to look himself in the mirror for the next 80 years. I still feel the cold. That's the first thing that comes back when I close my eyes. It's not the noise. People think war is loud, and it is. God, it's loud. But the quiet moments are the ones that stick to your ribs. It was that wet, piercing cold that settles in the Ardennes forest, the kind that soaks through your wool coat and gets into the marrow of your bones. I was 20 years old. I'm 92 now. My hands shake a little when I hold my coffee cup these days. But back then, my hands were steady, rock steady. That was the problem. If my hands had been shaking, maybe things would have played out differently. We were moving through a sector near the German border. I won't say the name of the village. It doesn't matter anymore. They all looked the same by that point in the war. Just piles of gray rubble, burnt timber, and mud. So much mud. It was like the earth was trying to swallow us whole. We had been on the line for 3 weeks straight without a hot meal or a dry pair of socks. You forget what civilization feels like. You forget what it feels like to be clean. You just become an animal that knows how to operate an M1 Garand. The squad was depleted. We had lost good men in the hedgerows back in France, and we lost a few more to artillery the week before. We were tired, not just sleepy. I mean a deep spiritual exhaustion where you stop caring if you live or die. You just want the walking to stop. But the army doesn't stop. The army keeps moving. Our regular lieutenant, a good man from Ohio named Miller, had taken shrapnel in his leg a few days prior. He was gone, evacuated to the rear. In his place, they sent us a replacement, a 90-day wonder fresh from officer candidate school, Lieutenant Vance. That wasn't his real name, but it's what I'll call him. He was clean. That's what I remember most. His uniform fit too well. His boots were polished. He still had that eager look in his eyes, like he was looking for a hero badge to send home to his mother. He didn't know the smell of dead cattle in the fields. He didn't know the sound of an 88 shell tearing the air open. He only knew the manual. And the manual said we had to clear the farmhouse up ahead. It stood alone on a small rise, overlooking a muddy field. It was half collapsed. The roof caved in on one side. It looked empty. Everything looked empty until it started shooting at you. That was the lesson we learned the hard way. But Vance, he was impatient. He wanted to show us he was in charge. He wanted to show us he had command presence. "Lawson," he barked at me. He always used our last names like he was reading a roll call. "Take point. Take Collins and move up the left flank. I want eyes on that structure." I looked at Collins. Collins was 30, which made him an old man to us. He had a wife and 2 kids back in Pittsburgh. He gave me a look that said, "Here we go again." We didn't argue. You don't argue in the infantry. You just check your ammo, shift the weight of your pack, and step out into the mud. We moved low. The grass was dead and brown, slick with frost. Every step was a calculation. You watch the windows. You watch the tree line. You listen for the snap of a twig that isn't yours. My heart was thumping against my ribs, a slow, heavy rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. We got within 50 yards of the farmhouse without taking fire. That usually meant one of 2 things. Either nobody was home, or they were waiting until we were close enough that they couldn't miss. I preferred the first option, but I prepared for the second. I signaled to Collins to hold up behind a stone wall that used to be part of a barn. The silence was heavy. It pressed down on your ears. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and sharp in the cold air. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. Lieutenant Vance crawled up behind us. He was breathing hard, too loud. He wasn't used to moving low and fast with a full kit. He smelled like shaving soap. It was such a strange smell out there. Amidst the rot and the cordite, it made me angry. I can't explain why, but smelling that clean soap made me want to hit him. It didn't belong here. "What do you see, Lawson?" he whispered. But his whisper was more of a hiss. "Nothing yet, sir," I said, keeping my eyes on the dark square of the farmhouse window. "No movement, no smoke. We need to clear it," he said. He was twitchy. "Battalion wants this ridge secured by 1400 hours. We're behind schedule." "Sir," Collins said, his voice low and gravelly, "if there's Krauts in there, they're dug into the cellar. We should wait for the mortar team to drop a few rounds, shake them up." Vance bristled. He didn't like a private giving him tactical advice. "We don't have time for mortars, Collins. We're going in. Lawson, you see that door hanging off the hinges? Put a few rounds through it. See if we get a reaction." I hesitated. Firing blindly gave away our position. It was a rookie move, but he was the lieutenant. I raised my M1. The stock felt smooth against my cheek. I aimed at the dark wood of the door. Pow, pow, 2 shots. The sound cracked through the valley, echoing off the trees. We waited. Nothing. No return fire, no shouting. Just the wind blowing through the dead branches. "All right," Vance said, seemingly satisfied. "Move up, double time." We broke cover and ran. Those 30 yards are the longest miles you'll ever run. You expect the bullet to hit you in the chest with every step. You brace for the impact. But we made it to the wall of the house. I pressed my back against the cold stone, gasping for air. Vance was right behind me, his pistol drawn. He looked excited. That scared me more than the Germans. He was treating this like a game of cowboys and Indians. I peeked around the corner. The courtyard was full of debris. An old wagon with a broken wheel, a dead chicken that had been there for weeks, and a door leading into what used to be a kitchen. "Clear the room," Vance ordered. I nodded to Collins. We did the dance we had done a dozen times. He kicked the door. I swung in, rifle up, sweeping the corners. "Clear left, clear right." The room was empty, just a broken table and chairs overturned. But there was something else. A smell. Not the smell of death, but the smell of living. Stale tobacco. Unwashed bodies. Someone had been here recently. "They're here," I whispered. Or they were. Vance walked in, stepping over the debris like he was inspecting barracks. "Check the other rooms. Watch for booby traps." We moved through the house. It was a skeleton of a home. Photos still on the wall, glass broken. A child's doll lying face down in the dust. You learn to ignore those things. If you look at the doll, you start thinking about the kid who owned it. And if you think about the kid, you lose your edge. You have to turn it off. You have to be a machine. We found the cellar door in the back hallway. It was closed. Collins looked at me. This was the bad spot. Cellars were death traps. If you open the door, a grenade comes out. If you go down, you're silhouetted against the light. "Open it," Vance whispered. I shook my head. "Sir, we should frag it first." "Throw a grenade down, then look. And destroy the structure? We need this as an observation post," Vance said. He was an idiot, a dangerous idiot. "Just open the damn door, Lawson." I reached for the handle. My palm was sweating now, despite the cold. I gripped the iron latch. I looked at Collins, who had his Thompson submachine gun ready. He nodded. I yanked the door open and jumped back. Nothing happened. No explosion. No burst of machine gun fire. Just the dark, damp smell of earth and potatoes. "Go," Vance said. I moved to the stairs. They were wooden, rotting. I took a step. Creak. Another step. Creak. It was pitch black down there. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I needed a light, but a light makes you a target. I paused, listening. I could hear breathing. Someone was down there. It was a shallow, terrified breathing. "Come out," I yelled in German. "Kommen Sie raus, Hände hoch." Silence. Then a shuffling sound. I said, "Come out," I yelled again, my finger tightening on the trigger. From the darkness, a voice spoke. It wasn't a soldier's bark. It was soft, trembling. "Bitte, please." "Light," Vance ordered from the top of the stairs. "Shine a light down there, Lawson." I pulled my flashlight from my belt. I didn't want to turn it on. I knew that the second I clicked that switch, whoever was down there would see exactly where to shoot. But I had a direct order. I held the light away from my body, low to the left, and clicked it on. The beam cut through the dust. It wasn't a squad of SS stormtroopers. It wasn't a machine gun nest. Huddled in the corner behind a stack of crates was a boy. He couldn't have been more than 13 or 14. He was wearing a uniform, but it was comically too big for him. The sleeves were rolled up 3 times. The helmet on his head slid down over his eyes. It was a Wehrmacht tunic, gray and dirty. But the face was just a terrified kid. He was holding a rifle, an old Mauser that looked longer than he was tall. He blinked in the light, shielding his eyes. He was shaking so hard the rifle barrel was rattling against the crate. "Drop it!" I screamed. "Fallen Lassen!" The boy stared at me. He didn't drop it. He just clutched it tighter to his chest, like a teddy bear. He was crying. I could see the tears cutting tracks through the dirt on his face. "He's armed!" Vance shouted from behind me. "Lawson, he's armed. Neutralize the target." I stood there on the stairs. The boy wasn't raising the rifle. He wasn't aiming. He was frozen in sheer terror. "Shoot him, Lawson. That is an order." Time stopped. This is where the 3 seconds began. 1. I looked at the boy. I saw his knuckles, white, gripping the wood. I saw the snot running from his nose. I saw my little brother who was back in Ohio delivering newspapers. This kid wasn't a soldier. The Germans were scraping the bottom of the barrel, drafting children and old men to defend the fatherland. He had probably been shoved into that uniform that morning and told to hold this house or be shot by his own officers. 2. Lawson, fire! Vance screamed. His voice was high, cracking with panic. He couldn't see the boy clearly from his angle, only the uniform, only the weapon. To him, it was just an enemy combatant. To him, it was a statistic for his report. 3. I had the sight of my M1 right on the boy's chest. At this range, the 30-06 round would go straight through him. It would be instant. I wouldn't miss. I was a good shot. I was trained to kill. I had killed men before. Men who were trying to kill me. Men who knew the game. But this wasn't war. This was execution. The boy looked right at me. He didn't beg anymore. He just looked at me with wide blue eyes that seemed to ask, "Is this it? Is this how it ends?" I lowered my rifle. "Just an inch." "No," I whispered. "What did you say?" Vance demanded. He started to push past Collins to get down the stairs. "Step aside, Lawson." "He's a kid, sir," I yelled back, not taking my eyes off the boy. "He's surrendering. He's holding a weapon. Put him down." The boy flinched at the shouting. He shifted his weight. The barrel of his Mauser swung up just slightly. It wasn't an aggressive move. It was a reflex. "He's aiming!" Vance shrieked. A gunshot rang out in the small cellar. It was deafening. The muzzle flash blinded me for a second. I didn't shoot. The bullet hit the dirt wall next to the boy's head. Dust sprayed over him. He screamed and dropped the rifle, throwing his hands over his head, curling into a ball. I spun around. It was Collins. He had fired a warning shot from the stairs, deliberately missing. "Clear!" Collins yelled. "Weapon is down. Target is secure." I rushed the boy before Vance could do anything. I grabbed him by the oversized collar of that gray tunic and hauled him up. He weighed nothing. He was just skin and bones. I kicked the Mauser away into the corner. "Rouse, move!" I shouted, shoving him toward the stairs. I dragged him up into the kitchen light. He was blubbering, speaking German so fast I couldn't understand a word. Mutter, mutter, mother. That was the only word I caught. Vance was standing there, his face red, his chest heaving. He looked at the boy, then at me. He looked furious, not relieved that we had a prisoner, furious that I had hesitated. "I gave you a direct order, Private," Vance said, his voice trembling with rage. "I ordered you to fire." "He surrendered, sir," I said, breathing hard. I kept my hand on the boy's shoulder, partly to keep him from running, partly to protect him. "He's a prisoner of war." Vance walked up to me. He was shorter than I was. He got right in my face. "He was an armed combatant. You endangered this squad. You endangered me. In the field, that is grounds for court-martial. Do you understand that?" "He's 12 years old, Lieutenant," Collins said from the doorway, his voice flat. "Look at him." Vance glanced at the boy. The kid was a mess. Snot, tears, dirt. He looked pathetic. But Vance didn't see a boy. He saw an enemy who hadn't been killed according to the manual. "Secure him," Vance spat. "Tie his hands. If he makes one wrong move, you put a bullet in his head. And Lawson? Sir, we are going to have a long talk when we get back to CP." I didn't care about the talk. I didn't care about the court-martial. I looked at the boy. He was looking at the floor, shaking, but he was breathing. He was alive. The air went in and out of his lungs because I decided not to pull my finger back. That moment stayed with me, not because I was a hero, I wasn't, but because I realized how thin the line was. If I had been more tired, if I had been more angry, if I had lost a friend that morning, I might have pulled the trigger. I might have killed a 12-year-old boy just because a lieutenant told me to. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. We kept the boy with us for the next few hours. We couldn't send him back to the rear yet because we were cut off. The radio was patchy. We had to hold the farmhouse until the rest of the company moved up. So, we sat in that ruined kitchen. Collins gave the kid a stick of gum from his ration pack. The kid looked at it like it was a diamond. He didn't know what to do with it. Collins had to mime chewing. When the kid finally put it in his mouth, his eyes widened. Sugar. He probably hadn't tasted sugar in years. I watched him chew that gum. I wondered who he was. I wondered where his father was. Probably dead in Russia. Or maybe in the cellar of another house across the valley, waiting for an American to kick down the door. Night fell. It gets dark early in November. The temperature dropped even further. We huddled in the corners of the room, keeping watch out the windows. Vance sat by himself, studying a map with a flashlight under a blanket. He wouldn't look at me. Around midnight, things changed. We heard the sound of engines, not the high-pitched whine of our jeeps or trucks. The deep, grinding rumble of heavy machinery, tracks clanking on frozen mud. "Tanks," Collins whispered. "Ours?" I asked, though I knew the answer. "Wrong direction," he said. "They were coming from the east. German armor, maybe a Tiger, maybe a Panzer IV. It didn't matter. We were an infantry squad with rifles and a couple of grenades. We couldn't stop a tank." Vance crawled over to the window. "Identify," he hissed. "Sounds like heavy armor, sir. 2, maybe 3 vehicles," I said. Infantry support moving with them. We saw the silhouettes against the snow that had started to fall. Dark, hulking shapes moving up the road toward our ridge. They knew we were here. Or they wanted this observation post back. "We need to fall back," Collins said. "We can't hold this against armor." Vance looked panicked. His command presence was dissolving. "We have orders to hold until relieved. We'll be dead in 10 minutes if we stay here," Collins argued. "We need to retreat to the tree line." Vance hesitated. He was paralyzed by the book. The book said, "Hold." Reality said, "Run." Then the first shell hit. It slammed into the roof of the farmhouse. The explosion was like a physical punch to the chest. Dust and plaster rained down on us. My ears were ringing. I couldn't hear anything for a few seconds. I saw Collins shouting, but no sound came out. I grabbed my rifle. I looked for the kid. He was curled up under the heavy oak table, hands over his ears, screaming silently. "Move! Move!" I could finally hear my own voice, sounding distant and tinny. We scrambled out the back door. The German tank machine guns opened up. Tracers zipped through the air like angry fireflies. Green tracers. Ours were red. Theirs were green. It was a light show of death. We ran for the stone wall. Vance was ahead of me. Collins was covering the rear. I grabbed the German kid by the arm and yanked him along. He didn't want to go. He wanted to stay in the hole. But if he stayed, the Germans would probably shoot him for surrendering, or our artillery would kill him when they returned fire. We dove behind the wall just as the kitchen we had been standing in disintegrated under another tank shell. The heat of the blast washed over us. "Where's the rest of the squad?" Vance yelled. "Scattered," I yelled back. "We have to get to the woods." We started moving, low crawling through the frozen mud. The kid was right beside me. He was surprisingly good at crawling. Maybe he had done this before, or maybe fear is a universal teacher. We made it to the tree line. The trees offered some cover from the tanks, but not from the infantry that was sweeping the field. We could hear them shouting commands in German. They were close. We stopped to catch our breath in a shallow ravine. I checked my ammo. 2 clips left. Collins had maybe 3 magazines for the Thompson. Vance had his pistol, and he looked like he was about to vomit. "We're cut off," Vance whispered. "They're between us and the battalion." "We head north," Collins said. "Circle around the ridge." And then the kid tugged on my sleeve. I looked down at him. He was pointing, not north, but east, toward the German lines. 9, he whispered. "Nicht da. Minen." "No, not there. Mines." I looked at Collins. "He says there are mines that way." "He's lying," Vance snapped. "He's trying to lead us into a trap." I looked at the kid. His face was streaked with mud, but his eyes were clear. He was terrified of the tanks, terrified of the noise, but he was looking at me with that same intensity as when I almost shot him. He was trying to tell me something. "Why would he help us?" Collins asked. "Because I didn't kill him," I said. "It was a gut feeling, a soldier's instinct. He knows the area. He lives here." "I am in command," Vance hissed. "We go north. That is the most logical route." "North is an open field, sir," I argued. "If there are mines, we're dead. If there aren't mines, the tanks will see us." The kid pulled my sleeve again. He pointed east toward a dense patch of brambles that looked impassable. Then he made a motion with his hand, a winding path, a deer trail. "Weg," he said. "De Weg," the way. I looked at Vance. "I'm following the kid." "That is mutiny, Lawson," Vance said, his hand resting on his holster. "Court-martial me if we survive, Lieutenant," I said. "Collins?" Collins looked at the lieutenant, then at me. "I'm with Lawson. The kid knows the ground." Vance looked at us. He was alone. He could shoot us, maybe. But then he'd be alone in the dark with a German tank division breathing down his neck. He lowered his hand. "Lead the way," he said, his voice cold. "But if we walk into an ambush, Lawson, I'll kill you myself before the Krauts do." I nodded. I turned to the kid. "Show us." The boy nodded. He crouched low and slipped into the brambles. We followed. It was a tight squeeze. The thorns tore at our uniforms and scratched our faces. But under the brush, there was a faint trail, hard-packed earth. We moved in silence for 20 minutes. Behind us, the sounds of the battle raged. Explosions, machine gun fire, flares lighting up the sky. But we were moving away from it. The kid led us through a dried-up creek bed, under a fallen bridge, and up a steep embankment. Suddenly, the noise of the battle was muffled. We were on the other side of the ridge. He stopped. He pointed down into the valley below. I squinted through the darkness. I saw the familiar outline of American trucks, a red cross on a tent. It was our rear aid station. We had circled completely around the German advance. The kid had saved us. I looked at him. He was shivering violently now that the adrenaline was wearing off. He looked at the American camp, then back at me. He knew he couldn't go down there. He would be a POW. He would be shipped off to a camp in Texas or Canada. Maybe that was better than this. But he took a step back toward the dark woods. "Wait," I said. He stopped. I reached into my pocket. I didn't have much: a pack of cigarettes, a lighter, and a small chocolate bar from my K ration. It wasn't much of a trade for 3 lives. I handed him the chocolate. He took it. He didn't smile, but he nodded, a sharp, soldierly nod. "Danke," he whispered. "Go," I said. "Geh nach Haus. Go home." He turned and melted back into the shadows. 1 second he was there, the next he was gone, like a ghost. Vance watched him go. He didn't say anything. He didn't try to stop him. Maybe even he realized that the manual didn't cover everything. We walked down into the American lines. We were safe, but the story doesn't end there. War stories rarely end when the shooting stops. The shooting stops, but the echo keeps going. Vance transferred out of our platoon a week later. I heard he got a desk job in Paris. He got his combat experience and realized he didn't have the stomach for it. Collins made it through the war, went back to Pittsburgh, opened a hardware store. We exchanged Christmas cards for 30 years until he passed in 75. But the boy, I thought about him every day. When I went home, when I got married, when I had my own son. Every time I saw a kid on a bicycle, every time I saw a boy playing with a toy gun, I saw that cellar. I saw those blue eyes. I wondered if he survived the rest of the war. I wondered if he made it home to his mother. 50 years went by, 50 years of life. The war became black and white footage on the History Channel. It felt like it happened to someone else. Then, in 1995, my wife Martha and I decided to take a trip, a grand tour of Europe. It was the 50th anniversary of the end of the war. A lot of veterans were going back. I didn't want to go at first. I didn't want to see the ghosts. But Martha insisted. She said it would be good for me. Closure, she called it. We visited the beaches, Omaha, Utah. We visited the cemeteries with the endless rows of white crosses. That was hard. Seeing the names of guys I knew, guys who were forever 20 years old while I got gray and wrinkled. We rented a car and drove into Germany. It was beautiful now. Green fields, rebuilt cities, modern highways. You couldn't tell that hell had been unleashed here. I had a map, an old map I had kept in a shoebox in the attic. I wanted to find that village. I wanted to find that farmhouse. It took us 2 days of driving around lost on back roads. But I found the ridge. The stone wall was gone, replaced by a wire fence. But the farmhouse, it was still there, rebuilt. The roof was new. The walls were plastered and painted white. There were flower boxes in the windows. It looked peaceful. I parked the car on the side of the road. Martha squeezed my hand. "Do you want to go up there?" she asked. "I just want to look," I said. I got out of the car. The air smelled of grass and manure. No cordite, no rot. A man was working in the garden in front of the house. He was about my age, maybe a few years younger. He had white hair, thick glasses, and was pruning rose bushes. He stopped when he saw me standing by the gate. He wiped his hands on his trousers and walked over. He spoke to me in German. I shook my head. "English?" I asked. "Yes," he said with a heavy accent. "Can I help you?" I was here," I stammered. "In the war, 1944. The man looked at me. His expression changed. He looked at my face, searching for something. He looked at my hands. "American?" he asked. "Yes, 28th Infantry Division. He stood very still. The wind blew through the trees, the same sound as 50 years ago, but softer now. "Come inside," he said. It wasn't a question. I looked at Martha. She nodded. I followed the man into the house. He led me into the kitchen. It was the same room. I knew the dimensions. I knew where the door was. I knew where the cellar stairs were. The floor was tiled now, not dirt and wood. There was a refrigerator humming in the corner. "Please sit," he said. He poured 2 cups of coffee. He didn't ask if I wanted any. We sat in silence for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked, tick, tock. Then he reached into a drawer in the kitchen table. My heart skipped a beat. Old instincts die hard. But he didn't pull out a gun. He pulled out a wrapper, a small, crumpled, faded piece of wax paper. He smoothed it out on the table between us. It was a wrapper for a Hershey's tropical chocolate bar, the kind they issued in K rations in 1944. I stared at it. My throat went tight. I couldn't breathe. I looked up at him. He took off his glasses. His eyes were blue, old, tired, surrounded by wrinkles, but they were the same eyes. "You had no gloves," he said softly. "I remember. Your hands were red from the cold." I started to cry. I'm not ashamed to say it. A 92-year-old man sitting in a kitchen in Germany, weeping like a baby. "You saved me," he said. "You and the other one. The one who gave me the gum. You saved us," I managed to say. "The mines." He nodded. "Yes, the mines." He told me his name was Hans. He told me that after he left us in the woods, he hid in a barn for 3 days until the Americans took the village for good. He never fought again. He grew up, became a teacher, got married, had 3 daughters. He lived a whole life, a life that existed because of those 3 seconds. We sat there for hours. We didn't talk about the war much after that. We talked about our grandkids. We talked about the price of gas. We talked about how our knees hurt when it rained. 2 old enemies sitting in the kitchen where we almost killed each other, drinking coffee. When I left, he hugged me. It was a strong hug, a brother's hug. "Danke," he whispered in my ear. "You're welcome," I said. That was 27 years ago. Hans passed away last year. His daughter wrote to me. She said he kept that chocolate wrapper in his Bible until the day he died. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. People ask me what I learned from the war. They expect me to say something patriotic. They want to hear about glory and flags and defeating tyranny. And sure, we did that. We stopped a great evil. I'm proud of that. But that's not what I think about when I sit on my porch at night. I think about the randomness of it all. I think about how easy it is to pull a trigger and how hard it is to not. I think about how a split-second decision can echo for generations. Hans had daughters. Those daughters have children. There are people walking this earth today, laughing, loving, dreaming, who only exist because I hesitated, because I saw a boy instead of a uniform. I think about Lieutenant Vance. He followed the rules. He did everything right, according to the army. And if I had listened to him, Hans would be dead. I would be dead. Collins would be dead. Sometimes doing the right thing means disobeying. Sometimes being a human is more important than being a soldier. It's a heavy thing to carry. The knowledge that you have the power to take a world away from someone. I carried a rifle for 2 years. I fired it plenty of times. I did my duty. But the most important thing I ever did with that rifle was lower it. I'm 92 now. The shadows are getting longer. My friends are all gone. But I can sleep at night. I can close my eyes and I don't see Hans's dead face. I see him standing in his garden, pruning his roses. I see the life he lived. And that is enough peace for one lifetime. There were other times, of course. Other close calls, other decisions. Not all of them ended as well as this one. There are faces that do haunt me. There are triggers I did pull. And maybe if you folks are willing to listen, I can tell you about those too. About the time in the Hurtgen forest when we were pinned down by a sniper for 2 days. Or the time we found a wine cellar in a French chateau and forgot there was a war on for 6 hours. But for now, I'll leave you with this. When you look at a stranger, remember that they are a whole world. They have a mother, a father, a past, a future. It takes 3 seconds to destroy that world. But it also takes 3 seconds to save it. Take the 3 seconds. Always take the 3 seconds. This is Henry Lawson signing off for now. Take care of each other. Actually, I'm not done. I thought I could leave it there with the story of Hans and the chocolate bar because it's a nice story. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like war has these little pockets of redemption, and it does. But if I stopped there, I'd be lying to you. I'd be giving you the Hollywood version, the version where everyone learns a lesson and the music swells and the credits roll. Real war isn't like that. Most of the time, there isn't a happy ending. Most of the time, there isn't a moral. There's just mud and noise and people dying for reasons you can't quite figure out. I mentioned the Hurtgen Forest. God, even saying the name makes my skin crawl. It's been 80 years, and the hair on the back of my neck still stands up when I hear Hurtgen. You know, everyone talks about Normandy. They talk about the Battle of the Bulge. But the Hurtgen, that was the place where the devil lived. It was a dense, dark pine forest on the border of Belgium and Germany. The trees were so thick that it was twilight at noon. The sun couldn't get through, and it was wet. Not just rainy, it was a constant soaking dampness that rotted your boots right off your feet. We went in there in the fall of '44. The command thought we'd push through in a few days. We were there for months, and it wasn't a battle of movement, it was a slaughter. See, in the forest, you lose your advantages. We had air superiority, but the planes couldn't see us through the canopy. We had tanks, but the trails were too narrow and muddy. The tanks just became big steel coffins stuck in the muck. It was an infantry fight, man against man, rifle against rifle. But the worst part wasn't the Germans, it was the trees. The Germans had fused their artillery shells to explode on contact with the treetops. We called them tree bursts. You'd hear the whistle of the shell coming in, but you wouldn't hit the dirt like normal. Because if you hit the dirt, you died. The shell would hit the top of a 100-foot pine tree and explode downward. It would turn the tree into thousands of jagged wooden spears, shrapnel and wood raining down on you from above. I want to tell you about Salvatore Moretti. He was a kid from Brooklyn, loud, funny, always talking about his mama's pasta sauce. He had this laugh that sounded like a car engine backfiring. He was the kind of guy who kept you sane. When we were miserable, shivering in a foxhole filled with freezing water, Sal would be telling jokes about the Dodgers. He was the heartbeat of our squad after Vance left. It was mid-November. We were on a patrol near a town called Vossenack. We were supposed to probe the German lines, find out where their machine gun nests were. It was quiet that morning. That spooky kind of quiet where the birds don't sing. The forest floor was covered in pine needles, so our footsteps were muffled. It felt like walking in a cathedral, a dark, twisted cathedral. We were moving in a wedge formation. I was on the right flank. Sal was on the left, maybe 20 yards away. I could see him weaving through the heavy trunks. He gave me a thumbs up. He had this superstition where he'd tap his helmet 3 times before we crossed a clearing. I saw him do it. Tap, tap, tap. Then the crack happened. It wasn't artillery. It was a single shot, a sniper. Sal didn't scream. He just folded. It looked like someone had cut his strings. He dropped straight down into the ferns. "Sniper!" Collins yelled. "Get down!" We all hit the deck. I scrambled behind the thick root system of a fallen oak tree. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would crack my ribs. I pressed my face into the wet moss, trying to make myself as small as possible. "Sal!" I hissed. "Sal, talk to me." Silence. Then, a low moan. "Henry, Henry, I can't feel my legs." He was alive. He was maybe 30 feet away from me. I peeked around the root. I could see him lying on his back. He was clutching his stomach. The blood was dark against the green ferns. "I'm coming, Sal," I yelled. "Hold on." I started to crawl. I got maybe 2 feet before, crack. A bullet slammed into the wood right next to my head. Splinters flew into my cheek. The sniper was watching him. He was using Sal as bait. It was an old trick. You wound one guy, and then you wait for his buddies to come save him, and you shoot them too. I scrambled back behind the root. "Don't come out," Collins shouted from somewhere to my left. "He's watching the body. Stay down." "He's not a body. He's alive," I screamed back. "We have to get him." "Henry, don't." Sal's voice was weaker now. "Don't do it. He's right there. I can hear him working the bolt." I lay there, breathing the smell of wet earth and pine resin. I felt helpless. Completely, utterly helpless. In the movies, the hero jumps up, dodges the bullets, and carries his friend to safety. In the Hurtgen Forest, if you jumped up, you died. We lay there for hours. The sun started to go down and the temperature dropped. The forest got darker. "I'm cold, Henry," Sal whispered. "I know, buddy, I know," I said. Tears were stinging my eyes. "Just hang on until dark. Once the sun is down, we'll come get you. I promise. Just stay with me. Tell my ma." He started, then coughed. It was a wet, bubbling cough. Don't talk like that, I snapped. You tell her yourself. You're going to eat that pasta, remember? You're going to take me to Ebbets Field. Yeah, Sal breathed. Ebbets Field, the Dodgers. I kept talking to him. I talked about anything I could think of. I talked about the girl I wanted to marry back in Ohio. I talked about the car I wanted to buy. I just wanted him to hear a voice. I wanted him to know he wasn't alone in the dark. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. Around twilight, it started to snow. Big, heavy flakes drifting down through the trees. It covered the blood. It covered us. Sal? I called out softly. No answer. Sal? Nothing. Just the wind in the pines. I waited until it was pitch black. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. I crawled out. I didn't care about the sniper anymore. If he shot me, he shot me. I crawled over the frozen needles to where Sal was lying. I touched his face. It was ice cold. He was gone. He had died alone, 30 feet away from his best friends, while we laid in the dirt and did nothing. That's the guilt that eats you, not the killing. It's the not saving. It's the feeling that you failed the people you were supposed to protect. I lay there next to his body for a minute, just holding his hand. I took his dog tags. I took the letter from his pocket that he had been writing to his girl. Then we had to leave him. We couldn't carry him back. Not with the sniper still out there. Not in the dark with the terrain the way it was. We had to leave him in the snow. We moved back to our lines in silence. Nobody said a word. Collins, who was usually the rock, looked broken. He lit a cigarette with shaking hands and didn't offer me one. The next day, the artillery started again. We spent 3 weeks in that sector. We gained maybe 400 yards of ground, 400 yards. That's the length of 4 football fields. And for that ground, we lost half the company. Sal died for a patch of dirt that had no strategic value whatsoever. We found out later that the generals had just pointed at a map and said, "Go there," without knowing what was actually in those woods. That's when the anger sets in. You start to hate the enemy, sure, but you start to hate the stupidity of it all even more. You start to look at the officers in the rear with their clean uniforms and their maps, and you want to scream at them. You want to drag them down into the mud and say, look at what you did to Sal." But you don't. You clean your rifle. You eat your cold beans. You put on a fresh pair of socks if you have them, and you keep walking, because that's what a soldier does. You endure. After the Hurtgen, we were hollowed out. I felt like a ghost walking around in a uniform. I didn't think I would make it home. I stopped making plans for the future. I stopped thinking about Ohio. I just focused on the next hour. Can I survive the next hour? Can I stay dry for the next hour? Then came the bulge. December 1944. We were sent to a quiet sector in the Ardennes to rest and refit. That was the Army's joke. There is no such thing as a quiet sector. It was the coldest winter in Europe in 50 years. The ground was like iron. You couldn't dig a foxhole. You had to blast one with dynamite or sleep on top of the ground. We didn't have winter gear. We had summer coats and leather boots that weren't waterproof. Frostbite took more men than the Germans did in those first few weeks. I remember waking up one morning, December 16th. The sky was heavy and gray, and then the ground started to shake. It wasn't a little rumble, it was an earthquake. The Germans had launched a massive counteroffensive. Hundreds of thousands of men, thousands of tanks, throwing everything they had left at us. They were desperate, and desperate men are dangerous. We were overrun. The line broke. Chaos, absolute chaos. My squad got separated from the platoon. It was just me, Collins, a new kid named Baker, and a sergeant named Miller. Not the Miller from before, a new guy. Gruff, older, had been in North Africa, he knew his stuff. We were in the middle of a snowstorm, wandering through the woods trying to find our lines. We were behind enemy lines, though we didn't know it yet. The Germans were everywhere. We could hear their tanks moving on the roads, those distinctive squeaky tracks of the Panthers and Tigers. We came across a clearing. In the middle of the clearing was a Jeep. It was one of ours. It was overturned, smoke rising from the engine. "Hold up," Sergeant Miller signaled. We approached slowly. The snow was crunching under our boots. It was deafeningly loud to my ears. There were bodies around the Jeep, 3 American MPs. They had been ambushed, but it wasn't a normal ambush. They had been stripped. Their boots were gone. Their jackets were gone. SS, Miller whispered. He spat in the snow. "Regular Wehrmacht don't do this usually. This is SS work. We checked for survivors. None. Then we heard a sound, a crunch of snow. We spun around, weapons raised. Out of the tree line stepped a German soldier, but he wasn't wearing gray. He was wearing an American uniform, an olive drab field jacket, American pants, but he was carrying an MP-40 submachine gun. He froze when he saw us. "Hey!" Baker yelled. "Identify!" The soldier shouted something in German back into the woods, then opened fire. We dove for cover behind the wrecked Jeep. Bullets pinged off the metal chassis. "They're wearing our uniforms!" Collins yelled. "They're infiltrators!" This was the scariest part of the Battle of the Bulge. Operation Greif. German commandos dressed as Americans, driving American jeeps, changing road signs, spreading confusion. You couldn't trust anyone. You didn't know if the guy directing traffic was a GI from Jersey or a Nazi saboteur. We returned fire. I saw the German drop, but then more fire came from the woods. A machine gun this time, an MG-42. Zip, 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 zip. That sound, like canvas ripping. "We can't stay here," Miller yelled. "Fall back to the ravine." We ran. We slid down a snowy embankment into a frozen creek bed. The machine gun bullets chewed up the snow on the ridge above us. We scrambled along the ice, slipping and falling. We ran until my lungs burned. We found a small cave, more of a depression under a rocky overhang, and huddled inside. We were freezing. We were lost. And we knew there were Germans dressed like us hunting us down. That night, in that cave, the paranoia set in. Baker looked at me. "How do I know you're American?" he asked. He was shivering, his eyes wide. "Shut up, Baker," I said. "I've been with you for 2 weeks." "Yeah, but how do I know?" He pointed his rifle at me. "What's the capital of Illinois?" "Springfield," I said. "Put the gun down." "Who won the World Series in '43? "The Yankees," Collins said. "Beat the Cardinals." "Now stop it, kid. You're gonna get us killed." Baker lowered the rifle, but he didn't sleep. None of us slept. We sat there, weapons pointed at the entrance, waiting for the gray shapes to appear in the snow. The next morning, the fog lifted. We heard engines, big engines. We crawled up the embankment to look. Below us on the road was a column of German armor. It was endless. Tanks, half-tracks, trucks towing artillery. They were moving west. They were heading toward the Meuse River. If they crossed it, they could split the Allied armies in half. We were just 4 guys. We couldn't stop an army. But then Miller saw something. "Look," he pointed. "The bridge. About a half-mile down the road, there was a stone bridge over a deep gorge. The German column had to cross that bridge. It was the only way for the tanks to get across the valley. If they cross that, they have a straight shot to Bastogne," Miller said. "So?" Baker asked. "We can't blow it up. We don't have explosives." "No," Miller said. He pulled out his binoculars. "But look under the arch. See those wires?" I squinted. I could see faint black lines running along the stone. "Demo charges," Miller said. "Our engineers must have rigged it before they pulled out, but they didn't have time to blow it. So someone has to trigger it," I said. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. I knew where this was going. "The detonator will be on this side," Miller said, "hidden somewhere near the abutment. If we can find it..." "Sarge, there's 1,000 Germans down there," Collins said. "We'll be seen." "If we don't blow that bridge, a lot more than 4 guys are gonna die," Miller said. He looked at us. "I'm not ordering you. I'm going. You guys can head back into the woods." He didn't have to say anything else. We weren't going to leave him. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. We moved down the slope, using the bushes for cover. The noise of the tanks was incredibly loud now. It rumbled in your chest. The smell of diesel exhaust was thick in the cold air. We got to within 100 yards of the bridge. We could see the German infantry walking alongside the tanks. They looked confident. They thought they had won. "There," Miller whispered. "That concrete box near the guardrail. It was a hell box, a plunger detonator. It was sitting right there, partially covered by a tarp. The engineers must have been killed or run off right before they could push it. The problem was, there was a German half-track parked 20 feet from it. Soldiers were standing around smoking, laughing. We need a distraction," I said. Miller looked at me. "I'll create the distraction. You make a run for the box." "Sarge, no," I said. "I'm the ranking officer," he said. He smiled, a grim, tight smile. "Besides, my knees are bad. I can't run as fast as you." He handed me his dog tags. "Give these to my wife if you make it. She lives in Toledo." Before I could argue, Miller stood up. He stepped out from behind the cover, right into the open. He raised his Thompson. "Hey, Fritz!" He screamed at the top of his lungs. The Germans turned. They looked confused for a second. An American sergeant standing alone in the snow screaming at them. Miller opened fire. He sprayed the half-track. Soldiers dove for cover. He took out 2 of them before they even raised their rifles. "Go, Henry, go!" Colin shoved me. I sprinted. I ran faster than I had ever run in my life. The snow was slippery, but I pumped my legs, staring at that wooden box. Behind me, the world erupted. The Germans returned fire on Miller. I heard the Thompson stuttering. Then I heard the roar of the machine guns. I didn't look back. I knew he was gone. I dove for the box. I slid into the snow beside it. Bullets started kicking up the dirt around me. They had seen me. I ripped the tarp off. The wires were connected. The plunger was up. I grabbed the handle. I looked up. The lead Panther tank was just starting to roll onto the bridge. The commander was standing in the hatch, looking at me. He shouted something, swinging the turret toward me. I didn't think. I didn't pray. I just slammed my weight down on the handle. Boom! It wasn't a sound. It was a concussion. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the valley and then slammed back in. The bridge disappeared. 1 second it was there, the next it was a cloud of dust and fire. The Panther tank tipped forward, hung in the air for a second, gravity fighting momentum, and then fell. It crashed into the gorge below with a screech of tearing metal. The shockwave knocked me backward. I hit my head on a rock. The world went fuzzy. I felt hands grabbing me. Collins, Baker, they were dragging me. "Move, Henry, move!" We scrambled back up the hill. The Germans were in chaos. They were shouting, firing blindly into the smoke. They couldn't cross. The column was stuck. We ran until we couldn't run anymore. We collapsed in a thicket of pine trees, gasping, coughing up the dust. We lay there for a long time, just listening to our hearts beat. "Miller?" Baker asked quietly. I shook my head. "No." I pulled the dog tags out of my pocket. They were warm. We stopped that column. We bought the 101st Airborne at Bastogne a little more time. But the cost was Miller, a man I had known for 3 days, a man who sacrificed everything so I could push a plunger. I visited his wife in Toledo after the war. It was the hardest thing I ever did. How do you tell a woman that her husband died creating a distraction? How do you tell her that his life was traded for a bridge? She made me tea. We sat in her living room. She held those dog tags and she didn't cry. She just looked at them and said, "He always hated bridges," said they made him nervous. We both laughed, a sad, quiet laugh. That's the thing about war. It's full of these absurd contradictions. You kill a boy, you save a boy. You blow up a bridge, you build a friendship. You hate the enemy, but you respect them. After the Bulge, the war changed. We crossed into Germany, and that's when we saw the true face of what we were fighting. We had heard rumors. Everyone had heard rumors. But you don't believe it until you smell it. April 1945. We were moving through Bavaria. The resistance was crumbling. We were capturing towns every day. The German soldiers were surrendering in droves. They knew it was over. We were approaching a town near Dachau. We didn't know the name of the place. We just knew there was a camp nearby. A labor camp, the intel said. We were riding on the back of a tank, feeling good. The sun was shining. The war was almost over. We were talking about going home. Then the wind shifted. It hit us like a physical blow, a smell, sweet, rotting, acrid. It smelled like burning tires and burning meat. "What is that?" Baker asked, covering his nose. "Chemical plant?" Collins guessed. The tank commander stopped the column. "Infantry, dismount! Check out that complex on the right." We hopped off. There was a high barbed wire fence, guard towers. It looked like a prison. The gates were open. The guards had fled. We walked in. I don't know if I can describe it. Words fail. Language wasn't invented to describe what we saw. There were piles of what looked like firewood, but they weren't wood. They were people. Skeletons with skin stretched over them, eyes staring at nothing, and the walking ones. They came toward us, slowly, shuffling. They were wearing striped pajamas. They looked like ghosts. They didn't cheer. They were too weak to cheer. They just reached out to touch us, to see if we were real. I saw a man, a skeleton of a man, fall to his knees in front of me. He grabbed my boot. He was sobbing. I had a chocolate bar in my pocket, the same kind I gave to Hans. I reached for it. "No!" a medic screamed, running over. "Don't feed them. Their stomachs can't handle it. You'll kill them!" I froze. I stood there holding a piece of chocolate, looking at a starving man, and I couldn't give it to him. It felt like a cruel joke. We walked through the camp. We saw the ovens. We saw the gas chambers. We saw the shoes. Piles and piles of shoes, children's shoes. That was the moment the war made sense. Up until then, it was just politics. It was territory. It was us versus them, But standing in that camp, smelling that smoke, I realized that this wasn't just a war. It was a fight for the soul of humanity. If we hadn't come, if we hadn't fought, if Miller hadn't died at that bridge, this would have been the future. This horror would have covered the world. I went behind a barracks and I threw up. I threw up until there was nothing left. Collins found me. He put his hand on my back. He didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. We just stood there, two boys from America looking into the abyss. That night, we slept in a field outside the camp. None of us wanted to sleep near it, but we couldn't leave. We had to wait for the medical units and the supply trucks. I laid in the grass, looking up at the stars. The same stars that were over Ohio, but they looked different here. They looked colder. I made a promise to myself that night. I promised that if I lived, if I ever got back to the world of front porches and apple pie, I would never let myself forget this. I would never let anyone tell me that it didn't happen. Because that's the danger, isn't it? Forgetting. Time washes everything away. It washes away the blood in the snow. It washes away the smell of the camps. It washes away the fear. And when you forget the fear, you start thinking that war is an adventure. You start thinking it's glorious. It's not glorious. It's necessary sometimes, but it's never glorious. We stayed in Germany for a few months after the surrender. Occupation duty. It was strange. The people who were shooting at us a week ago were now asking for cigarettes. The towns were rebuilding. Life was trying to come back. I rotated home in November of 1945. I took a ship back to New York. Seeing the Statue of Liberty, I know it's a cliché. But when you see that lady standing in the harbor after seeing what we saw in Europe, you cry. You can't help it. I took a train back to Ohio. I didn't tell my parents exactly when I was coming. I wanted to surprise them. I walked from the train station to my house. It was evening. The street lights were coming on. I saw the familiar houses, the oak trees, the picket fences. It was so quiet, so peaceful. I walked up the driveway. My dad was sitting on the porch, smoking his pipe. He looked older. He looked tired. He saw me walking up the path. He stood up. He dropped his pipe. It clattered on the wood. "Henry?" he whispered. "Hi, Dad," I said. He ran down the steps. My dad, who never showed emotion, who never hugged me, ran down the steps and grabbed me. He held me so tight I couldn't breathe. He was shaking. My mom came out the screen door. She screamed, a sound of pure joy. That night I slept in my own bed. It was soft. It was warm, but I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, waiting for the artillery, waiting for the scream of a shell. It took a long time for the noise to stop. Years. Sometimes I'm still back there. I'm back in the cellar with Hans. I'm back in the snow with Sal. I'm back at the bridge with Miller. But I'm here. I made it. And I have a duty to them. A duty to tell you their stories, because they can't speak anymore. Sal can't tell you about his mom's pasta. Miller can't tell you about his wife. I'm their voice. If you're still listening to my story, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button and subscribe. It means these memories won't be forgotten. I want to tell you one more thing. A small thing. A few years ago, I was at a grocery store. I was wearing my WWII veteran hat. I wear it sometimes. Not for attention, just, I don't know, maybe so other vets can see it and nod. I was in the checkout line. A young woman was behind me with her little boy. The boy was looking at me. He was looking at my wrinkled hands, my cane. "Mom, why is that man so old?" he asked loudly. The mom was embarrassed. "Shh, Justin, that's not polite." I turned around. I smiled at the kid. "It's okay," I said. "I'm old because I've been around a long time. I've seen a lot of things." The boy looked at my hat. "What's that say?" "It says World War II, I said. "It means I was a soldier a long time ago." The boy's eyes went wide. "Did you fight the bad guys?" I thought about Hans. I thought about the German soldiers who surrendered. I thought about the SS at the camp. "Yes," I said. "We fought the bad guys." "Did you win?" he asked. I looked at the grocery store. I looked at the food on the shelves. I looked at the mother and her son, standing there safe, free, happy. "Yeah," I said, my voice cracking a little. "Yeah, son, we won." The woman touched my arm. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." I walked out to my car. I sat there for a while. We won, but we left a piece of ourselves over there. We left our youth in the mud of France and the forests of Germany. We came back as different men. I hope you never have to see what I saw. I hope you never have to make the choice I made in that cellar. I hope your children never have to know the sound of a tree burst. But if the darkness ever comes again, and it always does, eventually, I hope you have the strength to face it. I hope you have the courage to stand at the bridge. And I hope you have the humanity to lower the rifle when it matters. This is Henry Lawson. Thank you for listening to an old man ramble. It's been an honor sharing this time with you. Good night, and God bless.